Egypt's National Election Authority says voting is proceeding smoothly on day 2 of the first phase across 14 governorates. Egypt's foreign minister says Egypt is engaging in UN talks on a Gaza stabilization force. And a senior Israeli official says Tel Aviv aims to topple Iran's regime by the end of President Trump's term. You're watching Q News. It's 8 p.m. Cairo local time. I'm Henny Saif, and in the news today, voting is underway on day 2, the final day of phase 1 of Egypt's 2025 House of Representatives elections. Polls opened at 9 a.m. across 14 governorates under full judicial supervision and NEA monitoring, with security and assistance teams in place. Polls close at 9 p.m.
Voting is underway for the second and final day of Phase 1 of Egypt's 2025 House of Representatives elections, with polling stations opening at 9 o'clock this morning across 14 governorates. The National Elections Authority says the voting process is continuing in an orderly manner under full judicial supervision and with continuous monitoring from its Central Operations Room in Cairo. This phase includes governorates in Upper Egypt and the West Delta. A total of 1,281 candidates are contesting seats under the individual system alongside competing electoral lists. Security forces have been deployed to ensure safety and smooth voter access, while the Ministry of Interior has assigned teams at polling locations to assist senior citizens and people with disabilities. Local committees have coordinated crowd flow to prevent congestion and maintain organized queues outside polling stations. In Giza, voter presence increased steadily in various districts, where turnout was described as active. Similar patterns were observed in parts of Sohag and Alexandria, where citizens continued arriving throughout the day. Media outlets and accredited civil society observers have maintained a presence at polling sites in line with regulations set by the National Elections Authority. Polling stations are scheduled to remain open until 9 o'clock tonight, with the authority encouraging citizens to cast their ballots, emphasizing that participation strengthens the parliamentary process and contributes to shaping the country's legislative landscape in the coming term.
The Egyptian parliament has been a cornerstone of the nation's political evolution, embodying its democratic aspirations, shaping legislative traditions, and standing as a living symbol of Egypt's steadfast commitment to representation, justice, and national progress. For closer perspective, here's our colleague Monam Salhi.
For over 150 years, Egypt's parliament has stood as a beacon of democracy and civic legacy, shaping laws, guiding governance, and inspiring representative life across generations. For more than a century and a half, the Egyptian parliament has stood as a powerful testament to the depth and authenticity of Egypt's parliamentary heritage, offering through its long history a unique model among the world's legislators. Egypt holds the distinction of being the first country in the Middle East to establish a parliamentary experience, laying its cornerstone on October 22, 1866, during the reign of Khedive Ismail, with the creation of the Consultative Council of Representatives. The House of Representatives serves as the legislative authority of the Egyptian state, entrusted with the essential responsibilities of enacting laws and overseeing the performance of the executive branch. It stands as the voice of the people's will, and its elections represent a vibrant arena for political composition and competition among parties, diverse ideological currents, and independent candidates. Among the Parliament's foremost legislative powers is the drafting and ratification of laws. The House discusses bills submitted by either the government or its members, approves them, and refers them for presidential assent, after which they enter into force as national law. The Parliament also plays a pivotal role in endorsing the state's general policy, contributing to the formulation and approval of the government's agenda. It approves the National Plan for Economic and Social Development and the state's general budget, serving as a guardian of fiscal balance and public accountability. Another key function of the House of Representatives is the ratification of treaties and agreements. The Parliament possesses the authority to review, debate, and either approves or reject international treaties concluded by the government, ensuring that such agreements align with Egypt's national interests before they are formally adopted. One of its most significant constitutional powers lies in the amendment of the Constitution itself. The Parliament may propose or approve constitutional amendments, which are then submitted to a public referendum, allowing the people to decide on the incorporation the new provisions into the nation's supreme legal framework. Thus, through its long and distinguished parliamentary journey, the Egyptian House of Representatives has offered a singular model among global parliaments, laying down the institutional foundations for a sound, representative, and enduring parliamentary life. Rooted in the history, yet focused on future, Egypt's parliament continues to embody the people's voice, fortifying democracy, fostering progress, and upholding the nation's enduring constitutional spirit.
The National Election Authority has announced that voting in the second and final day of the first phase of Egypt's 2025 House of Representatives election is proceeding smoothly across 14 governorates. NEA Executive Director Ahmed Binderi said during a press conference at the authority's Central Operations Room that the electoral process is progressing efficiently, with high voter turnout reported in several polling stations. Voting continues until 9 p.m. today, Binderi noted, adding that all voters present at polling stations by closing time will be allowed to cast their ballots. The first phase, which began Monday, covers 14 governorates, including Giza, Fayoum, Minya, Asyut, and Alexandria, with over 35 million eligible voters participating across 5,606 subcommittees in 70 districts. Egypt's National Election Authority has announced that no violations had been recorded since the start of voting in the first phase of the 2025 parliamentary elections. NEA Executive Director Ahmed Binderi said all eligible voters present at polling stations would be allowed to cast their ballots, adding that 5,606 subcommittees across 14 governorates were operating smoothly. He reported 2 medical incidents involving election officials, but confirmed both were promptly addressed. Binderi urged voters to report any coercion attempts, noting no such complaints had been received. Binderi also clarified that indelible ink is not used in parliamentary polls, as each voter is registered to a single polling station. And for more on this, we now move to Rehem Mursi in our newsroom. Rehem.
Thank you so much, Henny. To help us analyse the current situation, we're joined from Cairo by the journalist and researcher Ihab Omar. Thank you, sir, for joining us here on Qnews. So let's start off by asking you, how do you interpret the nationwide scenes of participation that we've witnessed during the second day of the first phase of the 2025 parliamentary elections?
Good evening to you and to everyone who's watching, and thank you for having me here in Qnews. Of course, this turnout and participation in the election shows that the citizens are very aware of the importance of casting their votes and how important these elections are, and also having the parliamentary elections at this time come the messages that the Grand Egyptian Museum inauguration has sent. The idea that this shows that Egypt is very stable and has parliamentary entitlements, and we know what we are doing, and they give the entitlements where they are due, and that it is a stable country that can hold the elections on time, even though there are so much tensions around us here, and after the tensions over the past years, even here, and they can get out a parliament that is very successful, that is very positive, that has so much to protect the citizens. In Israel, they have 7 parliamentary reforms since 2009, and they are talking that they have democratic unity and so on. But now we see the actual country that really has successful attempts, that has a successful parliament, the country that has the oldest parliament, and I don't mean the parliament that I mean the parliament from the era of Muhammad Ali. We have had a parliament for more than 200 years, and it is so much older than even the attempts of having a parliament in the European countries.
Also, we've seen quite a big turnout when it comes to the election process, whether it be all the way from Matruh to Aswan. What does this actually reveal about Egyptian political consciousness and their connection to this democratic process?
This actually shows that the Egyptian citizens are, as I said, very aware, and they have higher voices than those who claim that they are civil and cultured and can have an opposing vote. But now in the Egyptian streets, we can see that the citizens are the one who make the call, and they have such high awareness. They know their democratic rights and entitlements, and this proves that the countries that have said that that Egypt doesn't care about the House of Representatives or House of Senators elections, but actually, the Egyptian people haven't failed Egypt, and since also the 30 June revolution, and even when we had presidential elections in 2023 while the war in Gaza was happening, this shows how Egypt values democracy and elections, and that they will give the citizens their rights no matter what, and that we respect the election times and constitution. We also respect our constitution, and we will hold the elections no matter what.
Well, so given what you just said there, sir, you do agree with the idea or the notion that has been describing what's happening right now during the election process as a celebration of awareness about their democratic rights. Can you describe this characterization more fully, I suppose?
Of course, this huge turnout to the ballot boxes, this, as I said, it is a thermometer for awareness, and when we see this happening with the elections, House of Representatives, House of Senators, and then before the presidential elections. This shows how aware the citizens are. They know that they have, they know they have rights, and they know that the votes that they cast won't be in vain, and they will be able to choose who will be representing them. They are very aware that the parliament is actually for the citizens and issues laws for the citizens, and actually has real talks between the representative, the senators, the parliament, and so if, even if we give credit to the citizens awareness, we also need to give credit for or to the parliament and the parties here, because they gave the citizens the experience of choosing who represents them and to know more about their hopes and their dreams for tomorrow.
During the voting process, we saw an extensive way of supporting the elderly as well as those with disabilities so that they are able to cast in their votes. What does this say about the inclusivity when it comes to the Egyptian democratic process of today?
Of course, Egypt was one of the first countries that that thought of offering logistic support, especially for those who cannot go to the polling stations, especially the seniors and those with special needs. And even before we had designated hours to give the chance for those who work early in the morning to be able to cast their votes later in the day. And we have considered, Egypt has considered everything. They have considered,
so,
as I said,
in your opinion there, sir, since you said that the Egyptians have considered every factor, what would be your assessment for the organization and the management of the election process during the first phase, especially when it comes to logistics and transparency, and what could possibly be done in the second phase when it comes to this?
Of course, organization is more than perfect, and there are no issues whatsoever. And we don't have any security or organizational issues. As you know, in 2011 and 2012, the elections were held under the armed forces because there was some kind of terrorism. But now we don't have this. We don't have any security issues in Egypt overall. And so this, of course, is because of the organization and the security that the citizens can feel. We feel stable, we are stable, and this also came made right after the inauguration of the Grand Egyptian Museum, and this, as I said, sent a message that Egypt is very advanced and very safe.
Well, sir, now there are 35 million eligible voters during the first phase. If you could sort of break down the demographic makeup of the voters and those who participated, who had the most impact when it came to the voting process?
Of course, having the youth, they are the most influential here because they now, if we look at the number of citizens in Egypt, the youth takes up the largest percentage, and this diversity here from the we have this diversity, and people have gone to the polling stations from all governorates, and they have gone out from their homes to go cast their votes, and this shows that they are very satisfied with their country, with the parliament, and this is actually how Egyptians work. If they are really satisfied with the government, with the country, and so on, they go to cast their votes, even if it isn't presidential elections.
All right.
So yes, the Egyptians are.
The point there is clear that Egyptians are fully aware of their rights and are voting. Thank you so much. That was Ahab Omar from Cairo, a journalist and a researcher. Thank you for joining us here on Q News. And now we go back to you, Henny Safe, in our studio.
Thank you, Raham. The National Council for Women has reported a strong turnout of Egyptian women on the first day of voting in the 2025 House of Representatives elections, highlighting their key role in their democratic process. In its first report, the NCW said women across the 14 governorates flocked to polling stations from the early morning, demonstrating high awareness and commitment to national duty. NCW President Councillor Emel Ammar praised the women's active participation, saying it reflects their belief that voting is both a civic responsibility and a democratic right, reaffirming their vital role in safeguarding Egypt's stability and shaping its future.
And then, of course, we have the host tonight, and I just want to thank you very much. There was a reason we chose Egypt, because you were very helpful, and very, very helpful. Everybody wanted to have this, but we really thought it was appropriate, and you are a great leader. And he's a fantastic man and a fantastic general, by the way. But he's a great president, and I want to thank Egypt and all of your representatives for treating us all so well. Thank you very much.
Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati has confirmed that Cairo is actively involved in UN consultations over a Security Council resolution to deploy an international stabilization force in Gaza, stressing that the move must protect Palestinian rights and be enforceable on the ground. Abdulati said Egypt is pushing for a balanced, consensus-based text that reflects all parties' priorities without compromising Palestinian national principles. He emphasized that Palestinians must oversee their own affairs, with the Palestinian Authority empowered to govern. The Egyptian foreign minister also reaffirmed the country's broader commitment to African development, economic integration, and political, not military, solutions to continental crises. Humanitarian aid trucks began crossing into Gaza through the Rafah border crossing as part of the 70th Zaid al-Izza from Egypt to Gaza convoy. The convoy includes 200 tons of food parcels and flour, around 2,600 tons of essential medical and relief supplies, and 1,300 tons of fuel. Egypt has delivered over 500,000 tons of humanitarian aid to Gaza since October 2023 via the Rafah and Karma Abu Salem crossings in an effort coordinated by the ERC through 35,000 volunteers in tens of logistics hubs. The Knesset has approved in first reading a bill that would impose the death penalty on Palestinian prisoners convicted of killing Israeli citizens, with 39 lawmakers voting in favor and 16 against. Far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said the measure aims to deter Arab terrorism and prevent future prisoner release deals. The bill must pass 4 readings and move through a parliamentary committee before becoming law. Israel abolished the death penalty for murder in 1954. The only civilian executed in the country's history was Adolf Eichmann in 1962. UN Women has reported widespread sexual violence and severe food insecurity in Darfur, Sudan, following the fall of Al-Fashir on October 26th. Civilians have been targeted in killings and drone strikes, while women fleeing the city face rape, abduction, and other abuses. Around 11 million women and girls are at risk amid famine, with thousands displaced and many still trapped inside the city. The UN warned that rape is being used systematically as a weapon of war. A senior Israeli official has revealed that Tel Aviv aims to topple Iran's regime by the end of US President Donald Trump's term, as both nations prepare for another possible military confrontation. According to Israeli media, the official said Iran is rebuilding its advanced missile stockpiles depleted during June's 12-day war, while Israel closely monitors the situation. Israeli security sources said that any future conflict would prompt a far stronger response and last longer. The reports follow US media citing experts who believe renewed fighting is only a matter of time. Iraqis headed to the polls to elect a new 329-member parliament. Voting was reported smooth by the UN envoy, though turnout appeared low as many Iraqis voiced frustration with corruption, poor services, and entrenched political elites. The next government will face the challenge of balancing US and Iranian influence and reviving public trust in the country's democracy. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has commemorated the third anniversary of Kherson's liberation from Russian forces, praising the courage of local residents and soldiers who helped retake the city. Kherson is Ukraine, Zelensky said, emphasizing that Russia has no place there and stressing that only time separates the country from lasting peace. Highlighting ongoing threats, he noted that thousands of Russian drone strikes target Kherson every month and announced that Ukraine's Magyar Birds, unmanned systems and other units will bolster the city's defense capabilities. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said Russia will conduct nuclear tests if other nuclear powers do so, citing concerns over US statements suggesting tests could serve geopolitical aims. He added that Moscow is ready to address Washington's suspicions about underground activities and is open to restarting preparations for a US-Russia summit with Budapest as a preferred location. Russia's defense ministry has released a video showing damage on the outskirts of Kupiansk in Ukraine's Kharkiv region, claiming the clip depicts Kupiansk-Vozilovi, about 6 kilometers southeast of the city center. Earlier, the ministry stated that Russian forces had taken full control of eastern Kupiansk amid ongoing fighting in the area. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin, but before we wrap up, here's a recap of the top stories making the headlines this hour. Egypt's National Election Authority says voting is proceeding smoothly on day 2 of the first phase across 14 governorates. Egypt's foreign minister says Egypt is engaging in UN talks on a Gaza stabilization force. And a senior Israeli official says Tel Aviv aims to topple Iran's regime by the end of President Trump's term. As we close this hour, polling operations remain active across 14 governorates with steady to strong turnout reported at major stations and no formal complaints logged to this point. The NEA confirms continuous oversight through closing time and a further update for later today. These are all the news we have for today, but for more stories and live updates, follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Qnews EGY. From all of us here, thank you for watching.